So right now, let's just go right on to what we've got for you next. It's the developments that you may have seen reported in all the dailies here today. The scenario between the chairman, the acting chairman of the AFCC and some other agencies. We've got Mr. Dennis Magu, former deputy director with the DSS, joining us here in the studios. And then we also have Evie Richard, who is executive director of Corruption Observatory, also joining us via Zoom this morning. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on this morning. Let me start from the studios here.
Good morning.
Haven't seen the way this played out. When the news broke, they thought that security agencies, they initially thought it was DSS, they thought it was an arrest, because when they say you are invited, in some cases when they invite you, you don't come back. So the definition of invitation.
Or you are invited by force.
No, sometimes it's willing. They just tell you, please, you're invited. Then when you come in, the definition of invitation by security agencies is different from the regular English.
Yes.
Because you don't leave that premises, sometimes 24 hours, sometimes longer. So where people right to have thought, wait a minute, this is an arrest. Okay, so eventually when that then happened, DSS came up with a statement saying, look, well, we didn't arrest him. So now we understand he had to face a panel. We don't even know if he's out yet from all of those. So what do you make of all this play now?
It's power play.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it's power play, and I think people were having a nostalgia of what happened 2 years ago when I think the EFCC sent some of their people to go and search a former DG's house, residence. And when this happened, it was actually, they saw people in plain clothes, and they believed it was DSS. And actually, those were FCID people, you know. And they're actually sent by Magu's former boss, who is Lamode. You know, he's now the
in charge of FCID.
AIG in charge of FCID. So they jumped into the media to give out that news. I think Sahara reporters, you know. I think they have to be checking on this news before they jump out to beat everybody that I broke it, you know. So I think that was what happened.
So on the one hand, it's power play. On the other hand, the reportage.
Yeah, it's why, because when you listen to the spokesman of the EFCC, his first report was that I think they were arrested. Their boss was arrested. Then he later came back to say that he was not arrested. He was invited, you know. And all the same, it was not to the SSS. It was not the SS that was inviting or arresting. It was a panel that was sending for him to come and explain certain allegations that came out.
I want
But
to
the nature.
Yes, exactly. But let's open. Let's Mr. Evie.
No, just a minute before you get the apologies. But the nature of this, because it wasn't too clear at that time to newsmen what exactly happened.
Yes.
Even some officials of the commission didn't have all the details
They don't.
at the time.
They don't.
Because they said, look, it was a combination of some DSS and some policemen at that. So that's what made it a little tricky, wondering, look, why did they have to be given that invitation on the road, saying, no, this is more important than wherever or whatever you were going to do. So he then went to the villa, and journalists were barred from finding out what was going on at that point in time.
It was an investigative panel. And for one thing, I think Magu also has some blame on his own side, because apparently he was operating as a law unto himself. You know, he must be reporting to somebody, which he's not doing. You know, even in the United States, the FBI reports to the Department of Justice.
Okay. So in this case, the AGF.
Of course, and the AGF was the originator of the report, the allegations. You know, so when this thing came up, they know maybe he might not want to come or something. I don't know, but he was stopped on the way and then asked to. He wanted to go for another meeting. And they said, no, we have to go to this one first, and then they
That
have to.
means that decision was coming from a superior
Of course,
office
definitely.
to his.
Like I said, it was from the FCID. They went to invite him, and that's why the mistake came. Whereby because they were plain clothesmen, many people thought it was the DSS.
All right, let's take on Mr. Ivy Riches now, Executive Director, Corruption Observatory. First of all, what do you make of all of these? On the one hand, well, you've also heard our guest here say it's some kind of power play. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I have no doubt that a lot of Nigerians may have been jolted by the seeming arrest of Magu, but so many other Nigerians would not be that surprised, judging from what's been going on for a while now. Magu, as the chairman of the EFCC, has done quite a lot of good work while in office, convicted some high-profile politicians, and an ardent expert in anti-fraud and anti-money control issues. Magu was team leader of the special finance unit of the Nigerian Police Force, promoted Chief Superintendent of Police in 2003, appointed chairman of EFCC in 2015. But in 2010, Magu had an altercation with the Police Service Commission, and he was warned because he was withholding some EFCC files. Curiously, the then Senate, 8th Senate, refused to confirm the appointment of Magu based on intelligence from the DSS. Some of that intelligence stated that Magu currently occupies a residence rented for 40 million at the rate of 20 million naira per annum, and was paid for by one retired Air Commodore Umar Mohammed, and not the EFCC, as would be expected. And this same residence was furnished at the cost of 43 million naira by the FCTA through a contract awarded to MES Africa Energy, curiously owned by this same Umar Mohammed. Magu is also said to undergo most of his official duties in private jets owned by this same retired Air Commodore. And in one of those trips to Maiduguri, both of them were in company of the MD of a bank that was complicit in the case of the loot of Alison Madueke. And again, the icing on the cake, no other less person than the AGF has also come out to say that Magu has diverted some of the recovered loot. Nigerians have been questioning a long time what's been happening to these loots and how they've been utilized thus far. And not only that, that he has also recklessly and fraudulently engaged in sale of seized assets. Well, the case of Magu had to be approached with a lot of caution. I'm an anti-corruption practitioner. A lot of caution, a lot of care. These are all at the realm of speculation. And a lot of people say it is power play. The word play is a power play. But for me, Magu is a close friend of the presidency, and so is Malami. So I think it's the good thing that a panel is finally high-profile panel is finally put in place to unravel all of this and to see if there are any iota of truth.
When you say finally, were you expecting this way before now?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. Imagine that Magu was appointed in 2015 and has not been confirmed. Okay, at that time, it was speculated that the then Senate wasn't in good rapport with the presidency. But now we have a Senate that is in good rapport with the presidency, and his name has not been submitted for confirmation, even though a number of high-profile appointees have been confirmed since the Senate came into power.
Having said that, then, what does this mean for? Because you say it's speculation, but for some people, look, perception is reality. They just think that, look, this is their own reality. So what does this do to the entire the office of the commission, the approach to the fight against corruption? Does this in any way affect it whatsoever?
The anti-corruption function has to have an impeccable character. In fact, should undergo a lot of sting operations before being appointed and being confirmed. And if you confirm an appointee that has not passed those sting operations, it means that you are putting the country at risk. That is not in any way saying that Magu is guilty, mark you, because I know that if you go against people, people will certainly come against you. My point, however, is that this issue must be thoroughly scrutinized and the truth unraveled so that Nigerians would know exactly what is at play, if it is just power play or if there is truth that Magu is corrupt. See, Lamode had a near similar experience, so was Waziri. In faraway America, the head of the FBI has a similar experience. But in all of these issues, it's always proper to investigate and to find out that there is truth or it was just power play and somebody was just trying to be mischievous somewhere.
All right, just hang on a minute. Now, Mr. Marco, the thing about this is if they say it's power play, they're predicating it on the report. Those reports, well, which is the subject of this grilling by this presidential panel, so we may not be able to ascertain the veracity of some of those reports, but there was a certain report that was relied on, or upon which the then Senate didn't confirm him, and up to today, has anybody faulted that report, for instance? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I don't know if the panel actually investigated that report, because if they are going to speak to him, apparently I expect that they must have, because questions will come out from that report. How about this? And what do you know about this, right? So that will be there. But I think he has bigger problems, bigger problems in the sense that being the anti-corruption czar, so to say, there had been this problem of successfully prosecuting certain cases, high-profile cases, with him, because they find out that many high-profile or international profile cases are being lost in the court because of lack of evidence or improper investigation.
But that cannot be a wrongdoing on his part.
No, it will be, because if you are in charge of, before you go and arrest people, you should, you see what happened with Hush Puppy? Before they arrested him, it took them time, and then they arrested him, and within 24 hours, he was in court. But here, we are very good at parading suspects, media trials, all kinds of things that we do, and these cases go to court. A lot of cases by the EFCC have been lost. But they go to court and they lose the case.
What would you say is responsible for that? Is it because the agencies, the investigating agencies, are not doing their job, or they do not just have access to enough information to prosecute?
Number one, they didn't do a diligent investigation before, and then take this case and give it to the Attorney General. Because Minister of Justice, is supposed to prosecute. See, they are supposed to prosecute.
Okay.
But these cases were not taken to the Ministry of Justice. And, any case that is above about 15 million naira should be taken down to the prosecutorial authority, which is not done. So these ones are being done within the EFCC, and sometimes when they go to court, they lose the cases, because there are sons ready to, end their living, and by going down there, they throw cases out.
Which leads me to the next question. So each of these agencies are directly under the presidency, the EFCC, the DSS, the Ministry of Justice. What's the problem?
Some of these, in fact, actually, when you look at the EFCC, you could even say that it's a department of the police, because it has all the heads of the EFCC have been policemen, okay? And of course, supervisorily, they are under the Attorney General, because any case they have, even the DSS, if they have any case that they've investigated, they give it to the Attorney General to prosecute in court. So if you're not following that channel and going to the court by yourself, and when you lose cases, then you'll be responsible.
That's the problem. Sorry, Chimele. That's the problem. Each of these agencies work directly with the presidency. So from an intelligence perspective, what is the problem? Is it that they do not collaborate, or that they're having mutual suspicion?
Some of the agencies before now have been operating in silos, whereby they are all on their own, and then they report to the president and tell him, oh, I did this, it's not the other guy.
They've always done that, haven't they?
They've always done that, and this is not only for Nigeria. Even in the United States, they've done it. But you see, that's where the NSA comes in, where the National Security Advisor will serve as a clearinghouse to, get all these intelligence together so that they can work together.
But, some say that, look, he might have been grilled for 6 hours. A former president of the Court of Appeal heads that committee. You have the DIG of the police, you have the NSA, you have the DSS. So having all those personnel in that particular panel, in fact, some also say that there are about 24 allegations leveled against him. 22. Some of them, the reports, including that of the DSS, submitted in 2016 and some 2017. So it shows that there's something serious going in here. And when you're faced with this kind of scenario, what are the chances that you come off unscathed? Because some are already saying that this panel may recommend the sack.
Just like your other guest was saying, when you occupy a position like this, you have to have an impeccable integrity in dealing with things. Nigeria, we are having corrupt people all over the place, so sometimes you don't get very clean individuals. But when you are, look back at the EFCC itself. We've had people like Nuhu Ribadu, who was bribed, and he brought out the money and confronted the people who bribed him, And those are the kinds of things. Although, when you're fighting corruption, corruption will also fight back. But if your hands are not clean, it becomes a problem. So these are the nitty-gritty areas, the murky areas.
Mr. Richard, when I know you alluded to the point that, look, several other people have been submitted for screening to the Senate, and his name had not been part of those. Is that an indication that, wait a minute, there just might be something here? And do you see what happens at the end of this panel? Whether or not he's free or they recommend the sack, you think that in the event that he eventually carries on, can it ever be business as usual?
If I heard you clearly, you're asking if he is reinstated, if that will be good enough for the system. And I say that it will be an embarrassment to the country if any slight confirmation of any of the allegations is proven to be correct. As I said earlier, the truth of the matter is that that desk needs a character that has an impeccable integrity. But Chamberlain, my major worry is not this investigation that is at play. My major worry is the fact that what the foundation of all of this is because of a system that are weak. You would imagine that Waziri had this problem, Lamode had this problem, myriads of Nigerians in public service are having this problem. That straight ahead tells you that these systems are not strong. And I have been very close to a high-profile committee of this government, and I've opened up to tell them that, look, this government is not fighting corruption the way that corruption should be fought. There is no harm in pursuing people who stole money and making them refund the money stolen and jailing them. But if that's all the government is going to do, you may have to jail about 3/4 of Nigerians. Because as we speak today, 8 out of 10 Nigerians would rather take a corrupt medium to achieve an objective than go through some little pain and to do what is really correct. That is at the value system.
So we'll sharply disagree with you on that one.
The value system of the people.
Let me just ask Mr. Makria. I don't know if we can simplify things a bit so we can, place this in the whole scheme of things. Seeing what has played out, yesterday and in previous weeks and years, apparently this dates back years ago, would you say this is a blow to our fight against corruption, or is this a win for that fight? Or maybe the fight just landed a huge punch? Because you look at the way he was invited, the panel, especially when you know that the DSS is meant to be a part of the EFCC, or at least a representative of the DSS. So is this a blow to our fight against corruption, or that fight just landed a huge blow?
We can say that it doesn't tell good about us, especially internationally, that the head of our anti-corruption agency is also being investigated for corruption. So that's not a very good picture when you come to looking at it among Nigerians. But again, it also tells us that no matter who is sitting anywhere, they are the long hands of the law, or should I say the accountability part of it must happen, whereby no matter who you are, you can be brought to question.
Really call this the long arm of the law? Is that what this is, really?
Of course, we don't know. They are still investigating the allegations. But at the end of the allegations, let us see what results are going to come out.
Right. Also, I'd like to take you up on that phrase that corruption is fighting back. I know you have said this doesn't look good, but is there a possibility that corruption is fighting back in this case? Is that remotely possible?
Corruption always fight backs. It always fight back because, some of these people that the EFCC is fighting are millionaires and billionaires. And that's why you have to be very diligent when you're investigating people like this. And that's why we've not succeeded. I remember very well where there was a press conference and Magu was asked, how about Hush Puppy? And then he was like, we're on it. We're on it. And this does not happen until when the FBI and the Dubai police have to arrest him after their investigation and then take him to the United States. So that's an opportunity we have lost. Because if there's a criminal like that among us, or a Nigerian that we are very much aware of, why can't we bring him to book? And I know that the United States FBI had been very, very helpful to the EFCC. So it would have been us instead of the Dubai police arresting Hush Puppy and sending him there.
Let me see if we can bring in Mr. Richard into this conversation also and ask him. I mean, over the years, a lot of people have said we have put this petition out to the EFCC. I understand that the EFCC does not exactly need, petitions, as it were, to swing into action. But, regarding that angle, when people say we have submitted this petition, or at least we have raised this concern, like Mr. Macri just said, and it seems as though the EFCC is not doing much about it. Is that an issue, or it's part of the operations of the EFCC?
Well, I think it's part of the national problem. By the law setting up the EFCC, if you have leakages to the tune of about 3 million, I think, the EFCC is supposed to investigate it. But today, if you take a case of 20, 30 million to the EFCC, you may just be wasting your time because they have myriad of cases of running into billions of naira to investigate. And why is this? That's because the primary agencies that ought to fight anti-corruption is a proactive activity. It's not reactive. The EFCC is a reactive agency. So is the police. So is the DSS. The real anti-corruption agencies are the SON, this procurement body, the Code of Conduct Bureau, the Public Complaints Commission, that ought to be at the front burner. But all of these are like they are comatose. So the EFCC is overwhelmed. Every day people come with this case, that, and they have to do triage. Triage will mean that they will have to look at the one that is hurting the country the most to investigate and to unravel. So, but that's not a pass mark on the part of the EFCC. And I think that the administration, and especially the committee advising the president, should do a lot much more work on how countries now battle corruption. Corruption is not fought reactively. Anti-corruption is proactive. For instance, there are some frameworks that should be in place that we don't even have yet. Number one is the framework that would make Nigerians be able to speak out and be protected. The Whistleblower Protection Act. We don't have one. We only have a policy. Number two is the service provider and the receiver framework, Servicom. We don't have one. We only have a policy. You can go on and on and on and on. The one that is even the most important and which countries, don't joke with at all, is the standards, international and national standards, that citizens and corporate citizens willingly abide by. The vote of
In quickly here to put in this one more question. I mean, you have talked about some of the issues inherent, but, talking about this investigation, perhaps something that is also important about this is transparency. And if I can just take the words of the Minister of State for Labour, saying that how can you expose corruption without cameras, in quote, saying that this needs to be open to an extent, well, regarding that, his own case. So coming back to this investigation, how can we ensure transparency? I mean, pressmen were barred from that one, for example. So how do we know that this is really transparent?
Well, I think that it's just the beginning. This is just the beginning. If you bar pressmen from the primary hearing, I'm sure that it's not just going to end today. The story will definitely come out one way or the other. But ensuring transparency would have meant that at least one or two media agencies will have been allowed into the place. But in the wisdom of government, I don't think it's that bad. Let's just watch and see what comes out of the investigation. interrogation.
All right, then, Mr. Ivy Richards, the Executive Director, Anti-Corruption Observatory, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this morning. Well, bringing it back here, you know, the way all of this is playing itself out. Now, if pressmen don't have access to some of these things and then it's being carried on this way, then they come out and feed us certain kind of information, you'll always have questions as to what exactly happened. How transparent is this going to be? Why weren't you there in the process? Why were you prevented from coming right there in the process? But is this a mindset that security agencies have got and they will continue dealing with, do you think?
It's not a situation where you call pressmen to question the head of your anti-corruption agency.
No, not necessarily to question him.
Yeah.
About the entire process, letting them know what exactly is playing itself out.
They will know. Maybe it's not time for them to know, but
dear.
they will know. You know, because when they don't
What's wrong with knowing from the start?
Yeah, no, because from the start, they've already produced or manufactured some false news that ran all over the place.
Because they didn't have information.
Exactly.
They
But
thought it was
didn't
DSS.
ask. They
They
have
thought
to
it was
ask.
police.
Yes. So, you know, let us leave it until they finish what they're doing.
Perhaps
Then
the
they
main
will come up
problem,
with, yes.
Mr. Macri, perhaps the main problem is the process. Because the process in itself gave room for a lot of speculation and untruth.
Now, let me give you an example. This is Channels Television. If there is a case that they are going to, you know, investigate in-house, you are not going to call the press to come to it. Remember, this is still in-house.
We are not a public organization.
No,
We're
even
a
if it
private
is a public organization.
Yes.
This is still in-house, whereby, you know,
No.
they are calling somebody
the point is the process
Yes.
of even bringing the man in the first place. No notice was given. He was just picked up from the road.
But the public was not called to come and see, like, we are going
It
to
was
pick up this
public.
guy.
It's our job to see anything in the public and report
But you
it.
didn't see it well, see? That's why Sahara reporters went and reported it wrongly. You know, but please, listen, this is very important. Let the panel do their job. By the time they finish, definitely everybody will know the outcome.
Everyone is expecting the panel to do their job. But the
Yes.
problem that I'm trying to point out, please give us that information, give us that education. The man was, from what the very first question Chimelin asked, the process of bringing the man in was in itself a little bit faulty. If the man had been invited and the man refused, then there could be an issue. But that's not the kind of thing that played out. He was going for a meeting, and then he was diverted from that meeting to another place. It's kind of suspicious, wouldn't you say?
Suspicious.
Yes.
I don't think so.
He's a newsman, so
No,
you can
I don't think
understand
so.
that.
Yeah.
So
That, you know, see, we don't want. We've already talked about media. What do you call it? Media judgments. You know, that is not where we want to go, because when you start to call pressmen or invite him, and he might like press to come, because we don't know the media people that actually saw him at that time. They were asking him to go to the panel, you know. So when you make it a media judgment or media trial, you know, it becomes very, very funny, because you start having people taking sides and everything. You know, let them look at him and then come up with a report.
We get your point, but the thing about it is that even if media men don't see him at that point where he was being diverted, look, Nigerians are out there. It's social media world these days. They will
Agreed.
see it, they will put it out there, and then the government will now start chasing that information, trying to correct it. So if in the event that somebody sees what's transpired, what's going on, and takes a picture, records it from a distance, and sends it out, nothing wrong in saying, well, actually, this is your
There's nothing
anti-corruption
wrong.
agency
But let it
you're
be
talking
correct.
about here.
Let it be correct. Nothing wrong with reporting.
But
yeah.
what do you expect from this panel now? If over 20 items, you know, brought before this panel that he's got to answer to,
Yes.
that is not one, it's not two. This is a lot.
A lot,
And all
yes.
of those agencies, heads of those agencies that are there, it shows the gravity of what is going on now. And if he's supposed to report to a superior and he has a frosty relationship with that superior, from what may be in the press, rightly or wrongly, it does suggest as though, look, the end may be nigh for him.
Possibly.
But from your expertise, you think
Possibly,
that...
because you see, when police people bring a case to court, if it is 1 or 2 counts, lawyers can grapple with it. If they give 15 counts, you know, before you can get yourself out, it will take a long time, you know, because one will hook you, you know, whether you like it or not. So for 22 counts, I think he has a problem there.
But what do you make of this, looking at it from a completely different angle now? In 2015, when he was suggested to the National Assembly, they said no. Throughout that first term, it was no. And repeatedly, the president at the time kept trying to put him in, and the National Assembly kept rejecting. Now, the president has not presented his name, and this allegation comes on. How do you think this will rub off on the president?
Well, I don't know. Because you see, when even the first time when he was presented and they said no, the president resubmitted him again, you know, and I was worried because the Senate is supposed to confirm people for you as the president. Now they are saying no, and then you are still representing him. So is there anything special about this guy that will make the president to keep on representing him? And after they rejected him the second time, you still let him go there in acting capacity for almost 5 years now. So I don't know. It is the president's prerogative to appoint or to fire anybody. But he might have impressed the president. I don't know.
But, you know, the fact that this also happened at the banquet hall, saying, look, this is not just any regular place. This is a banquet hall.
Yeah.
This is a serious matter we're looking into here.
Yes.
It suggests the president is aware of what's going on.
Of course he's aware.
And so, just as you say. But then, at the end of the day, yes, I know you say one may hook him. But in the event that none hooks him, would you see him, would you think it's, yeah, carry on? All of that was a ruse.
If I was Magu and I go to this panel and they give me a clean bill that all the allegations were faulty and everything, and I come out, what I will do is to resign.
Wow, okay. We'll rest our case at that point. So perhaps if you guys can also tell us what you think of what's going on. Hey, Twitter to us, we'll appreciate that. But we thank you for coming on, Mr. Dennis
Thank you for having me.
Former Deputy Director with the SSS. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.